Morning, Mr. Sam. You're muted. Oh, that's better.
Okay.
Hello. Before everyone else gets there, how are you?
Camera on this laptop. I seem overexposed.
Yeah, I see too much of you.
Yeah. How about this?
Yeah, that's a bit better, actually.
I'm in the dark.
That's a bit better. Just a practical question before everyone else gets here. The recording you get from Zoom, there isn't a special thing to interact with it. It's just files.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I'm here. I'm turning off an alarm. I'm listening.
No, that was it. That was my question. The recording you get from Zoom, do you just get files, or is there some piece of software to help you navigate that? A time browser.
It's interesting. It creates a Zoom file.
Right.
If you double click it, then creates the audio file, the video file, and a separate chat transcript. But initially, it's all in one thing.
Right, okay. But it doesn't have its own time browser style software.
Not to view it, no. Basically, you play it back using any video player.
Right, okay.
Today. I think, they anticipate doing something, but, that's why they have that Zoom file. But right now, it's reusable in its MP4 and MP3 forms.
All right, yeah, no, that's fine. Because Ed said, of all people, that he'd seen somewhere some way of doing close to time browser stuff. So that's fine. By the way, also quick things on Future of Text.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a few virtual attendees this time because they're software developers. So they just cannot afford to come over, however, or they're busy. But because I think it's more important to show people in the room what they're working on and let them ask questions why, I decided that's okay. But to have someone who is talking theory, they should really be in the room. Do you agree, or does that sound very harsh?
I think it's how you want to run it. I think that certainly the hallway and casual conversation runs better when people are actually physically present.
Absolutely.
But if you really, really want to get some piece of input that is not otherwise obtainable, then remote or virtual is the only option.
Eileen Clegg, does she have an organization at the moment?
She has a company called Visual Insight.
Oh, really?
Yes. Visualinsight.net.
Okay, no, that's cool. I'm just putting together a list. I've asked very few from last time to come back this time because trying to have fresh people, we have, it's an interesting list.
Mm-hmm.
Korea's worked heroically to get it hosted at Stanford, but they're just such snobs, most likely it'll be Google. Vint is looking into that now. Right, we're still waiting for people. So then the big question, how are you?
Let's talk about that offline.
Yeah, not so fun.
What I'm actually doing is I'm very, very much anticipating relocating to the Northwest. I just can't wait for that.
Yeah, that'll be a big move.
And I am very, very, let's see, Joshua.
Joshua?
We're about to meet Joshua.
Oh, right. I'm going to turn my video off because I'll have to be moving about a bit for this call. My father had an operation today. Not something super serious, but I may have to leave a bit early to pick him up.
Hey, Josh, welcome. Is your audio on?
Hello.
Would you like to speak and introduce yourself?
Hi, Joshua. Nice to meet you. I will be here, but I will turn my video off because there'll be things going on in the background.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, when you got your invitation to this, what got you interested in attending this? Joshua?
Yeah. Hey, Sam. So I think for me, the thing is, can you hear me all right? I just want to make sure that this was working.
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. So for me, the thing that really got my curiosity was, I guess, underlying it, the idea of how can we use collaboration to fundamentally shift the way that we learn and create, and how can we use collaboration as the basis for which we're actually shifting the education system towards something that would actually make the world work for the whole of our biosphere.
Great.
So any conversation that has to do with exploring that is really of interest to me.
So have you been coming out of the EF community? Ivan?
Yes. So, Ivan.
Gavin, welcome.
Hi there.
Gavin, you're very muted. Are you close to your microphone, or do you have your microphone turned on or off? Matthew.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Ah, great.
Before
Great.
that, it seemed like you had a remote mic or something.
Ah, okay.
Matt, how goes?
Morning, Sam.
Hey, Ivan. Is it Ivan or Ivan?
Well, it's Ivan in Russian and Ivan in United States. I'm used to both.
Okay. We'll go with Ivan for now. How's that? Okay. So it's already 5 after, and I want Leah. There we go. Leah, welcome. Can you hear us okay? Hey, Leah, one thing I've always wondered, what time zone are you in? Leah, can you hear?
Hi, folks. How are you?
There you are.
Sorry, I noticed my audio wasn't connected. To try to get away from the sun because it looks like I'm a ghost in here.
All right. If I turn on the lights, then I get overexposed myself. So, Leah, just as a matter of reference, what time zone are you in?
I'm in Eastern Standard
Okay.
in New York.
All right. Very good. Okay. So it's already 6 after. And out of respect for those of you who are attending on time, I wanted to at least first state what I've been doing and what I think this forum might be. I know Dino has sold this forum quite widely. And so I want to make sure that what he's saying and what I wanted to do are more or less consistent and aligned with what interests you, okay? So let me spend about 2 minutes doing that for myself, and then I'd like to sort of get everybody's feedback on whether or not this is going to meet your expectations, okay? So just for myself, I come out of the Doug Engelbart school of thought, which is that there is a massive opportunity ahead of us right now. In fact, it existed for the last 50 years. For us to potentially learn how to work together in a much more scalable way. And for us, understanding how to work together in scalable ways is necessary if we have to give ourselves a chance to address some very global issues. You can figure out what those global issues are, whether it's disease, whether it's famine, whether it's water purity, whether it's deforestation, whether it's resource management. But all of those issues share one thing in common, and that is that no one person, company, nation, or even continent has a chance to solve those problems by themselves. So we have to learn to collaborate on a much more planetary scale. So Doug had always been focused on the co-evolution of technology and human practice. And what we've observed is that while technology has magnified our capability to do things, by orders of magnitude every decade, we are still struggling to really understand how to evolve the human side. How we use the technology to believe or think or behave, or act, or feel, or interact in a much more, let's say, mature way. Mature in the sense of for the species. So the whole idea is, how do we get to an understanding where we can take some technology, take our practices, and have these co-inform each other so that we can quickly do this double co-evolution cycle and learn as quickly as possible, and learn specifically in this area of conversation on how do we grow successful collaboration, how do we grow successful teams, interactions, and magnify the impact that we have so that we give ourselves a chance to address these very global problems. That's at a very high level what my interest is. And so the collaborology term refers to the study of principles and practices for how collaboration successfully scales. So I'm going to stop my quick introduction at that point and sort of get some feedback and see whether or not you've been invited to the proper forum and whether this is a topic that's of interest to you, okay? So I guess in rough order of arrival, Frode, you want to go next? Take 1 to 2 minutes. Frode, are you there? You're on mute right now.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm here. No, I'm very happy to take
Would
your
you like
lead.
to turn on your video at least for a brief second while you're introducing yourself, Frode?
All right, okay, I can say hello. Hello, everybody.
He's photogenic.
It's a bit things going on in the background here today. That's why my video is off. Yeah, I just really like to support Sam and what he's doing. We work at kind of different angles of this. I am very much a text-oriented person. I'm also a teacher at times, but I don't really have anything to add to this other than it's very good to be here and be spending this time with everybody. And Sam, this is very good stuff.
And one more note, I'm going to say this on Frodo's behalf since Frodo's not saying it on his behalf. Frodo is a tool builder. He's actually got a couple of apps very much inspired by Doug Engelbart in development. And so he is probably as far along as anyone in trying to pursue Doug's ideas and make them real. So I just want to give you that props, Frodo. Okay. Josh, or is it Joshua? Would you like? Frodo?
I was just saying thank you, Sam.
Okay. You're welcome. Joshua, or is it Josh? Which would you prefer? When would you like to go next? And you're on mute, by the way. Joshua, you're still on mute. Okay, there you go.
Okay, how's that?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. So I think for me, so absolutely this feels like the place that I thought it would be, just in regard to exploring these ideas and concepts. And for me, there's the interest that I come with is around personal, social, and systemic leadership capacity building and creating educational opportunities for systemic innovation and building capacities around that. And so to explore collaboration as a basis for how we both explore the study and the learning of how to relearn in a way that allows us to collaborate at scale and at these different scales, for me is certainly of great interest. And how do we do that in a way that shifts our relationship to evolution in a way that allows us to do that on purpose and use the augmentation of tools, certainly is something that I'm eager to explore more. So really happy to be here.
Great, thanks. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Let's see, if I recall correctly, who's next? Was it Gavin?
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to go next. I guess just very briefly, having come from an investment banking background, I spent about 25 years doing that kind of stuff in operations. I wanted to kind of escape and explore the big wide world out there beyond those four walls, and increasingly drawn into the world of social system design, and that's how I hooked up with Alexander and Sam and Dino, and increasingly about the power of story. And one of my kind of additional sort of inspirations was a lady called Donella Meadows. I reread one of her, so she was sort of lead author on The Limits to Growth, the 1972 book. And a couple of years before she died, she published a paper called Leverage Points, Places to Intervene in the System. And right there at the top, the top two being, the paradigm or sort of mindset out of which the system structures and rules and goals, etc., arises. And then there was one above that, which was the power to transcend paradigms. So I've recently begun developing an idea and starting to talk with some storytelling folks in terms of potentially creating a sort of a transmedia strategy that could tap into the power of story to help sort of accelerate the shift that's already begun. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Gavin. Okay,
Hello.
welcome, Dino.
Sorry I'm late.
What we're doing is I stated, and you probably have heard this before, my 2-minute introduction to what I think this is about. Joshua was able to do the same. Gavin went next, and now I think Ivan is next.
All right. Well, I'm new to Engelbart's ideas, but I've been on my way to it, and it resonates a lot. Like when I just discovered it for myself, it was like, wow, that's a lot of what I was thinking about. But also to put it in a perspective of like my current interests. So with Joshua and Dina, we are involved in the process of Protopia Labs, which should be an educational nodes for bringing in new knowledge for a new paradigm. And for me, all this collaboration involvement is also perceived from a point of view how we can take those instruments and spread them like offer them to our labs to spread to other people, to our communities around. So, and I'm looking for some instruments which can enhance our collaboration, whether technological instrument or humanitarian instruments, which can be also basis for this Collaborology course, which we can run jointly, co-create, and practice Collaborology while creating it. And we are really in a request for Collaborology tools of our own, like for example, even right now, because with all the things we are doing, how to connect all of us.
Mm-hmm. Very good, thanks, and welcome. Dino's actually been speaking quite a bit about the connection with the whole GEF community and the Protopia Labs. So this has very much been anticipated, and this link, I think, has been waiting to form for a while. Thank you. So obviously everybody's gotten just a very quick opportunity, and there's much here that I'm hearing that I want to follow up on, but let's go next. Matt, is it you?
Yeah, maybe. So I have a little organization called Collaborative Advantage, and so right in the name there, it kind of betrays that I'm on board with that stuff. That said, the one, probably not difference, but slightly different emphasis for me is instead of focusing on the advantage of simply collaboration, I think about all of this stuff from the framework of regulation. And by that means the ability to collaborate as well as the ability to know who not to collaborate with, right? Which I think is inherent to a lot of this, and it has to do with just the fact that there are multiple layers at which we are going to regulate ourselves. We're going to perceive of ourselves as individuals. We're going to perceive of ourselves as small groups, as larger groups, and we're not going to be a part of a single community. That there are going to be many communities that we are part of. That's how we actually exist in the world. And we form a community with a spouse that's different from the community that we form with our coworkers, et cetera, et cetera.
And don't try to form the same rules, right?
That's right. And we want different rules for those things. And so, like many of you, I've been working both on the political philosophy side of that, but also the tool building side. And I spent a lot of time working with a couple of folks in particular, but as part of a larger group called the Metacurrency Project, that is specifically focused on building the communication tools to enable this type of new forms of social organism, would be the way that we frame it.
Anyway, Matt, really good to see you again. Let me just add, there's no assumption or axiom in Collaborology that says collaboration with anyone is possible or easy. So there is no such axiom there. Okay, much to get into. Leah, I think it's your turn.
I'm practicing our Zoom skills. We're actually moving to Zoom next month, so I'm really excited to use Zoom. Yay!
All right.
So here at my own institution, I'm the director of online learning and innovation. So of course, I'm pretty excited on that front, but also my PhD research involves applying a framework that was developed by Eric Jantz to study the innovation going on in small institutions and looking to see if higher education is indeed collaborating with society and communities for some sort of evolution. And what's happened in the recent years is a lot of them have pulled inward instead of working with society, collaborating with society, just as they have because of all the challenges they're facing. Not all of them, but that's what I'm looking to study in small institutions in particular. The one thing I wanted to add, it's fantastic, first of all, to see you all in person because I've seen a lot of your names on the email, so that's a lot of fun. But I'm wondering, I think this has come up in our conversations before, if there's a way to see if there is a model that other organizations or entities or groups have that are kind of doing this work with technology. So one of the groups that's kind of come up in our conversations is like Anonymous. How are they leveraging technology to work together to create change? And even though that change isn't necessarily, regulation kind of came up, it's not, nobody's saying you should do this, and I'm sure there are a lot of people saying you shouldn't do this. But also something like a few years ago, I came across a sort of a gaming website. It was developed, I think the UN contributed. It's called Urgent Evoke, and the site is still up. It's urgentevoke.com if you want to go to it. And the site is kind of like a game, and it's meant, it was kind of modeled in sort of an open course style, but this was before MOOC, so it wasn't a MOOC, even though there were thousands of people involved. And it's more of a gamified learning experience. There's leaderboards, there are people, there are characters, and there's storylines, but it gets people to think about the different situations that we have in the world, such as, when you're faced with water shortage, drought, or you're faced with, say, urban food deserts, and how you could work together to solve those problems. And I think that's a really interesting model to also take a look at, is this sort of gamified learning experience. And then another one that's come up in our conversations is greenmap.org. So we've looked at green mapping, kind of plotting around the world the different efforts that are going on in, hopefully, in an effort to sort of connect all of the efforts that are going on. So I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of look at these models and somehow come up with something that can be mimicked, or, a framework or something like that. But I think there's something there. And lastly, I think, Sam, you're doing a fantastic job of moderating this conversation. And the other thing to add, I think, is that curators are really important in this sort of, conversation, and helping to steer conversations and efforts in the right direction. So just wanted to add those things.
That's really cool. Obviously, I have a unfair advantage here in that I get to go from person to person, but as I do, I insert these comments unfairly. But this evokes this notion of NIC of NICs from Doug Engelbart. NIC is Network Improvement Community. And Doug has this notion that not only are there network communities in specific domains, but these, in effect, connect with each other and form another meta network that is another opportunity to learn and apply lessons from domain to domain. So I think that's a really cool way to think about things, and your ideas map very, very well onto that. Anyway, a lot more to discuss there. And then unfairly, I will then ask, was it Dino? Was it Dino who was next? Dino, are you there?
Dino is here. Should maybe Joshua go before me, because he's more of a kind of a newcomer or guest at this point. and then I go
Why don't
last.
you give your 20-second view, Josh? Because he already did give his 2-minute version before you arrived.
Oh, he did. Okay, you didn't say. Okay, so shall I go or Joshua?
You.
Okay, so hi everyone. I guess most of you know my story rather well. I would like to just mention very, very briefly that.
Actually, can you retell it briefly? Because I don't believe Matt knows.
I don't.
Yeah.
Tell about what exactly?
Your 2-minute version, whatever you want to fill 2 minutes with.
Collaborology. I will say that. Let me just say before that we are talking about two things, and I just want to put one on the table before we move on to collaborology proper. There is this Jeff, right, or GEF, whatever we call it, or Protopia Labs, actually. And one really interesting thing that happened in connection with Doug and extending his work is that Protopia Labs have embraced evolutionary learning labs as their modus operandi. And that is pretty much exactly what Doug had in mind as a network improvement community. Except that evolutionary learning labs don't yet have their technology. It's not a socio-technical system. It's really just a systemic idea, mostly. And so my sense is that one of the things that are really beautifully in the creative soup right now is creating finally the dynamics of evolutionary learning labs. And I think that will be a kind of a prototype, a kind of a project that will engage us in some awesome ways. Let me turn the page and say that Collaborology course, for me, I have been sharing with some of you this 8 vignettes to begin a paradigm. At the end of that, there is about a 10-minute version of just naming the design patterns of Collaborology. Instead of going through 10 minutes now and taking everybody's time, I would really recommend you to hear this. And if you don't have that thing, so it's slides and audio on SoundCloud. If you don't have that, I'll be happy to share.
Yeah, why don't you put the URL here in the group,
I put an URL as soon as I'm finished. But the point is here simply that Collaborology for me is a kind of a prototype that serves very many purposes at once. And this is kind of how I see systemic innovation at its best, right? That it's not just, okay, so we achieve X. We achieve actually everything. So for example, it's a living prototype of Global Education Futures Forum. So they are out there in the world federating innovative design patterns for how education should be. We are then implementing them right into a living prototype, a showcase, right? But there is more. This prototype is, it's federating, it's a globally federated course. It is also a way for us to put a body of knowledge together. If you think about physics, it has been putting its body of knowledge together from the beginning of time. It has its courses, its university departments, and so on and so forth. If we want to put online collaboration on the world map, what do we do? Well, this is what we do. We create a course that spreads the knowledge globally and accumulates it globally also. So I mean, really, it's food for thoughts on many different levels. And I don't want to, it would take the whole hour to do this at this point. But I want to tell you just as kind of a bottom line that the way I'm excited about Collaborology is that it serves all purposes at once, including the purpose of us getting together and having some good fun.
I personally want to thank Dino, because Dino actually was kind of an impetus to getting this particular forum here scaled to the 9 or so people that you see in front of you today. Previously, this Wednesday spot has been reserved for this particular topic, but there's been a much smaller group of us, including Dino, Stan Gould, Frode Hegelin, occasionally Alexander, and a few others that talk about this. And we've actually, in the sense, been arriving at this topic now ever since we started these calls around the end of 2012. So it's been approximately 3.5 years. Now, obviously, we've talked about other topics as well, but collaborology has definitely been a key theme in all of that. And so I wanted to at least thank Dino for taking this opportunity to really kind of bring in some other voices, other faces, and really extend the conversation. So I really appreciate that. Hey, Alexander, would you like to go next?
Mute off. Hey, excellent. This is very exciting for me. I'm very happy to be here and to join everyone. What I see emerging here, and I'll give you a bit of my background, but just first, the source of my excitement is that what I see now crystallizing and emerging is a manifestation of a more shared, a more embodied expression of a learning community that is dedicated to learning how to learn in harmony with the dynamics of its broader environment. And that's what I see this group and others who we don't yet know, who are kind of sitting here at this table, but are not actually present with us in this conversation. In 1989, I began the Evolutionary Learning Community Systemic Integration Group, or a Systemic Inquiry Group, sorry, at the ISSS. I ran that together with Katja Laszlo for a number of years. It eventually changed into the...
Hear Marcel?
Yes, Sarah, we can hear you. Welcome. Alexander?
Sure. It eventually turned into the Evolutionary Development Group, since Evolution Learning Community was seen to be one vehicle for coherent evolutionary development of our species. And again, well, not again, but we thought of the term evolutionary development because there's so many types of development. We talk about psychological development, national development, economic development. We always preface it with something. What is all of this type of development together, embedded in a living world? That holistic or systemic type of development. And we saw the evolutionary learning community as one form of that. One vehicle to express or to move towards evolutionary development. Just recently, we've rebranded or renamed that Systemic Inquiry Group of the ISSS into the Curating Emergence for Thrivability Group. And Dino is co-chairing that group with me. And we are focusing on the things that we're talking about in this, right here with regard to collaborology. It really got its name change after the 2013 ISSS conference in Vietnam. And there the focus was on this notion that emerged from the conference of the World Evolutionary Learning Tribe, the WELL tribe. My clock, which is 1 minute late, sorry. And the World Evolutionary Learning Tribe, or the WELL tribe, is a construct, a concept, but it's an ontological construct. It's about what exists in the world and how we have different forms of learning communities that are fractally scale up from local evolutionary learning tribes to regional to global. And it is one other slice of the way in which we can talk about collaborology. It's tremendously, tremendously co-aligned, and Sam and I have had some fascinating conversations, and many conversations, but just scratching the surface, really. So I see what's emerging here, and what Matthew was also talking about very interestingly, what I call connective intelligence as a precursor to collective intelligence, which itself is only in service of collective creativity. And finally, just to wrap all that up, this is all related to the doctoral program that I'm just now launching. Dina will be here the end of the week that follows. So in in a week and a half, to help launch this brand new doctoral program. And just to let you know, it's called the leadership, doctoral program in leadership and systemic innovation. Really, the focus is on systemic innovation. It's just what we're talking about here. I'm going to wrap up now in just a moment. Sorry for taking so long, but it's just what we're talking about with regard to the four pillars of in this program of systems thinking, which really is much beyond systems thinking. It's about systems seeing and systems being. In the end, it's about being the systems we wish to see in the world, not just designing them and mapping them and modeling them. It's about collective intelligence, which we talked about, which I mentioned just a moment ago, from connective intelligence to collective intelligence to collective creativity. It's about, well, given the nature of the program, disruptive innovation. But again, the focus here is not that the innovation itself is disruptive, but that the behaviors to which it leads, what kind of changes in ways of being does this bring about? And the final component is design thinking. Design thinking as a kind of a designerly way of being. It's a leadership characteristic that we're bringing into the framework of the program, and heavily drawing on not only human-centered design, but also frameworks of biomimicry and nature as mentor. And that, just to give you a little bit of a good note on that, we just launched. We were only able to go public due to our accreditation process 1 month ago. So it's very little time in order to get students to join a program with 1 month's notice, a 4-year program of study. 11 students would have made us break even. We have an upper limit of 20 students to accept in the program, and we have now 27 applicants. So there's a real interest in this, a real interest and excitement on people to be part of this kind of work. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm happy to move with you on this. Thank you.
I'd like to actually start a donation activity to collect so that we can offer a scholarship to Donald Trump. Okay, if we could. Anyway, let's go next.
There's a goodness of fit issue there. I'm just saying.
Sorry.
Everybody, thank you so much. I have to jump onto another call, but I'm really looking forward to participating in these calls going forward.
Matt, thanks for joining us. By the way, I'm going to post the video of this after the call, and hopefully we'll be inviting others to next week's call. So hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday as well.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye, guys.
Hey, thanks, Alexander. And actually, one thing you didn't say, which maybe everybody already knows, is that you're a past president of ISSS. You mentioned your participation in ISSS, but you didn't mention that you're past president. So you actually have a very prominent role there. And there's an opportunity for us to really reach out to a larger community via Alexander. And so that's really part of this bridge. I know that Dino saw an opportunity to create about 3 or 4 years ago. So I wanted to acknowledge it. Dino, you're doing that job there too. Okay. Now, Sarah, I know you've joined us very recently. You may have missed some of the early sections of this, but what we're doing, and there's about 9 of us now because Matthew left, giving us kind of the 2-minute version of what got you onto this call, what was interesting about the invitation and the topic itself, and what is your particular relationship to it. So, Sarah, if that makes sense, would you like to go next?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yes, we don't see your video though.
No. Yes, I'm trying to get on to turn on the camera, but it's not working.
Okay. That's all right for now. Why don't we do it via audio for now?
Yes. Okay. Please help me a little bit if how to share.
Well, what we've been talking about is the original impetus for Collaborology, and I gave kind of the, I guess, my version of what it was, and it's been encapsulated mostly by the links that I shared in the Skype group. So yeah. I told the story, I told basically why I'm interested in this through the Doug Engelbart story, and everyone here, you may not be able, I don't know, do you see the other participants at least by name, or do you see the actual video?
Yes, I can see a few by video, and I can see their names.
Okay, so anyone, we have 9 people here now. So you're next and probably last in giving kind of a 2-minute introduction to yourself.
Oh, yes. Okay, sure. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm living in the Netherlands. And I started to experience the evolutionary learning style. That's how I am really receiving this, what is happening in my learning process. When I started with the GBU program with Symphony, the learning frame, and a few months later, I started with Evolutionary Leadership for Sustainability with Katja Laszlo. And that was when I found out that it was Symphony Quest offering the evolutionary learning community. So that was a totally new way of learning for me, and connecting through the internet with very much systems thinkers, because before it was, for me, it was not an option to get in touch with so many others, because it was going to the conferences and going to training programs, being there with others, but that was just learning in groups of 30 people. And so this was really, really a big innovation for me, to step into a field and being connected with so many people at once. And they are all connected with each other and knowing each other. So that made it also very safe for me to learn more about how to design through technology in a systemic way. Because for me, a systems being is learning to be myself more. And that is happening actually the last years.
Excellent. Well, Sarah and I have had some fascinating conversations. So I think, I'm already pretty excited by the composition of this group. And in fact, ideas are buzzing in my mind of who else ought to have been here but didn't get invited yet to this particular group. So I certainly hope that we can successfully scale. And that's an interesting exercise for ourselves. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the logistics of this thing. This time of Wednesdays at 6 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, over a couple of years has evolved with some people in Norway and London and Denver and Buenos Aires and California. And it seems to work okay so long as the people in California are willing to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And since I've been doing that for 4 years now, I guess I'm in the habit of doing that. On the other hand, not everybody in California or this specific time zone may be willing. So if there are people that you want to include in this, and this time is not working out, eventually we may have to consider a different time. Also, are you aware of anyone who you might have wanted to invite, but could not attend simply because this very first time was not convenient for them? So anyway, this particular time is a working placeholder, and if we need to reconsider it, there's nothing that says it has to be this particular time, and we can reevaluate that as we go. Second thing is, again, in an unfair advantage, Vino invited me, and so I took the advantage of doing so, of sharing some of the work in progress, outlines, presentations, thoughts, spreadsheets, etc. So if you scroll back in the Skype transcript, you can sort of see that I've offered a few things for people to look at. And I apologize in advance for their rudimentary form. This is all very early thinking. So some of you may have had much more mature thinking, and so I very much look forward to examining that as well. So please feel free to share that in the Skype transcript. One more logistics thing is that I know that we're using Zoom right now, which seems to work very well for video. I think it's much superior to Skype for video. But one of the advantages that Skype has is that if you actually have content in the Skype chat transcript, you can actually scroll back to the beginning of the group, even if you were added late in this group. So note that, one of you who may have been just added in the last few hours can scroll all the way back to sometime yesterday when this group was created and see the original links there. But, basically the point is, if we add someone weeks or months or years from now to this group, they can still scroll all the way back to yesterday and get the history that's in the Skype. So that's why I would prefer, and I suggest, that we keep notes in Skype rather than in Zoom, because in Zoom, it's session only, okay? So that's just another aside. Second thing is one of the blog posts, next thing. One of the blog posts that I shared with you is something called the 8 artifacts. And the 8 artifacts is just, my very simple form that I've learned through a few teams that I've been working with of what really is useful when you form a team, what is useful to create in the form of, some people use the term boundary objects, others are artifacts. Basically think of them as ways of creating a group memory. And so this 8 artifacts blog post is something that I offer as something that we can practice. And it's very much work in progress. So if you see ways to improve it, please do. But one thing I would suggest is to either take that or an improved version of it and try and implement that for this team. Okay, so things that we need to create or be, where is the group memory? Where are we going to track, what our purpose is? How are we going to track our commitments to each other, et cetera, et cetera. So those are what the 8 artifacts describe in very brief form. So I suggest that you take a look at that and help me improve that. Another thing I offered is a thing that I'm hoping will evolve into this thing called the Dictopedia. And the recognition is that we each come to this particular opportunity with our own preconceptions of what words mean, because we've had our own version of education, we've had our own version of semantic evolution. And so when I say systemic innovation, and when Dino says systemic innovation, and when Alexander says systemic innovation, that could be a very precise term that's actually very commonly held. However, in a different form, if I say personal presence, to me, that could mean something very different than what Leah thinks or what Frode thinks. So these ways of getting at other people's meaning and try to find those little mismatches between what we think something means versus what someone actually means is the problem that's being addressed by a project that I've proposed called Dictopedia. There's a spreadsheet that I've shared that collects somewhere around 300 terms now over the last 3 or 4 years of discussion that tries to at least present at least one, and it's not entirely successful, but at least one definition for each of these core concepts or terms or words that we've been bandying about in this space. You'll notice, and this is what's exciting, is that for some terms, there are multiple definitions. And that's where the excitement happens, okay? And I encourage multiple differing definitions of terms so that we can actually get explicit this difference in understanding, and hopefully over time, we can then merge our understandings towards something that we can mutually work with. Or to keep the meanings separate and to say, meaning 1, meaning 2, etc. That's all fine. So anyway, that's another artifact that I shared, and hopefully will help us establish common language or common usage in this particular group. Anyway, I've been going on long and long enough. There's about 13 minutes left. So I just wanted to get the other people's reactions to the introductions and to the logistics comments and to see, if this is meeting people's expectations. And I see that Dino had his hand up. Dino, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, I would just like to mention in the context of what you just said, that obviously creating tools for collaboration will be part of our mission. The brothers, Rudan brothers, they're not available at the moment, but in principle they are. Sasha has just gotten married, so he's hiding somewhere in Croatia with his lady. But they have created this thing called Collabo Framework. In my next blog post, I'm going to say a few words about this, where it belongs. If you think about Doug's open hyper document system, it's a little bit similar to that one. And so the point is that you have one notion of knowledge, and then you have apps that can plug in and that are interoperable in the sense that by combining the apps, we can create knowledge work processes and systems. And so if you imagine systemic innovation in real life, in place, you imagine people sitting at the table, you put these things on the table, and people can use them as Lego blocks to create systems. Lego blocks plus their own bodies create a socio-technical system for knowledge work of an arbitrary kind. I'm saying this because this, I feel, should be, in quotes, the right solution. Because if we sit down and start creating all kinds of technologies that are not interoperable, that will bring us only halfway. And then we'll have to basically probably recreate everything in order to satisfy this little requirement of interoperability. So I would like to just put this project, in addition to all other projects on the table, as a kind of a meta project. I think we basically, because we have lots of manpower and brain power at this point, we need to think long term and really see that we do that.
Anyone else with a burning topic? Because I have definitely follow-up to Dino, but let me open the floor up.
Just really wanted briefly to mention that anyone who is in California on the 25th of August, you're very welcome to join us at the Future of Text, which deals with one aspect of the tool system.
Great. So that brings us to another of the logistics issues. I know that as far as events go, there is ISSS at the end of July in Boulder, Colorado. There is Future of Text on August 25th here in the Bay Area. There is an opportunity at the end of September, I believe. Dino, have you set the date? 24th through October 2nd, I believe, which is Dino's attempt to gather all of us in Dubrovnik, Croatia, so we can talk specifically about collaborology together, person to person, face to face. And then there is also on December 9th, this is not yet completely firmed up, but on December 9th of this year, there's an opportunity to do the next program for the Future Conference, which is entirely Engelbart-based, and that would be here in the Bay Area, or at least in this time zone. So that's the stuff that comes to me off the top of the head. That's not mentioning all the stuff that you are doing that I'm not even aware of. So there's a lot of activity that could be influenced and also could be inversely, bilaterally influenced by this conversation as well. Not to mention GEF and what's going on with GEF, okay? Anyone else with something burning to add before I respond to Dino? Alexander.
Yeah, just because you asked, and so I get to jump in with my burning before you're burning. We could just start something called We're Burning Men, I guess.
I'm simmering right now, okay?
Simmering, okay. Well, two things. One is definitely all that you just now mentioned in terms of a schedule of events and related activities. I suggest working very closely with Ivan. He is doing an amazing job connecting all that's emerging into a kind of a coherent tapestry, rather than an eclectic set of related, but not synergetic movements. So yeah, I think we should somehow have it'd be lovely to have a master plan, not like a plan in terms of something to execute, but in terms of a map, to be able to see, hey, what's coming up, a time map, what's coming up and what are people doing in different points.
Well, you know, one of the, just a quick note to that, one of the artifacts is a team calendar, ideally.
Yep.
Please continue.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, the other thing is just a matter of curation at this moment. I know Gavin is doing a tremendous amount of work in this area himself. And we have, in the Amigos group, we've talked about this balance, which I think right now is going to be very important, the balance between proactive design, where we moving ahead and saying, okay, let's shape this like this. Let's give it shape. Let's give it voice. Let's concretize what is emerging in some kind of meta system. I think that is very, very important. And it's very important, I think, also not to get ahead of the wave or ahead of the pack of horses, or however you want to put the metaphor. You get run over, you get swamped. The idea is that the other balance between actually giving it form is to curate the spaces for it to emerge. the other aspect of sort of the being invisible, stepping back, getting out of the way, and allowing for. But that doesn't mean being inactive or not present. Quite the opposite. It's really about presencing and but now it's collective presencing. So I think how do we do the collective presencing bit where we are like this, finding each other and allowing for different aspects to emerge, even with very strong suggestions of how it should be, from lighthouse, polyscopy, collaboration, well tribe. We have many sociofacts, many constructs already in play. So allowing them to sort of find each other and to self-assemble, I think is very, very important in part. The other part will be an engineering kind of task, actually creating the systems and putting structure to them. I think if we over-engineer it, it won't be organic. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying that this right now is this wonderful dance that we have to do between the design space of allowing for emergence and the design space of proactively putting form into it. Over.
I love that. So I'm going to unfairly then respond to that. One of the things I want to do in about a minute or so is to say, you touched on one of the dimensions of this course, that we could engage in. This is this balance between design and emergence and engineering, etc. I also want to highlight that, at least in my mind, there's several others. Obviously scale is one dimension. Time is another dimension, immediacy. But there's other dimensions of the shifting from inside to outside and presencing versus team logistics and dynamics. So much of what organizational design takes, is external, the protocols, the practices, etc. And there's other studies and disciplines that actually address how people themselves show up, the presencing idea that you're talking about. And so that's another dimension of exploration and study, I think, that is pertinent in this field that we're now gathering to hopefully develop and explore. And there's many other dimensions, there's completion, there's technicality, there's application, there's impact, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to at least tease people by saying there's a lot of different ways, there's push and pull for us to really find out where the space is that we are occupying in this discussion. So that's response number one. Response number two is I'm going to, again, unfairly share a diagram that is a very, very early diagram of a map that came out strictly from the Engelbart view of things. So if I say, let me just go in on this here. Let me just zoom in on this area.
So Sam, as you're just doing that, I have to jump to catch a train. But I'll listen to the remainder of this on the playback when you share that. So thank you, everyone, and yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Actually, then let me not do it because I know we're bumping up against the time frame. There's only 4 minutes left. That diagram would have taken us into many, many minutes of discussion. Let me just pop it up for a few seconds and take it away as a teaser for what we might do next time. Okay. So I know you've got to catch a train.
Cheers.
That there's 3 minutes left. Let me not then respond to Dino so directly, but let me open up the floor to any last statements, topics, any other invitations that you might want to each issue before we adjourn on the hour.
I can share one thing, which is that, so I mean, all of this I think sounds phenomenal on the different levels that it touches upon. And one of the ones that I would want to include would also be sort of somehow creating the space to talk about in practice, what do these things look like, mean, feel? What does it mean to be engaging in the systems innovation and systems being in regard to specific projects that we may be working on right now out in the field? And I personally have some specific questions and things I'd love to explore around some specific projects that both include capacity building and systemic innovation, and how powerful it would be just to get to explore that with other practitioners in regard and in addition to all the things that we've then voiced here.
So I may not yet entirely understand what you just said, but in my mind flashed another whole area of things called the COI, which I have yet to bring into the discussion. So I do want to have that extension as well. Let me invite Ivan. Any last closing comments, discussions, topics?
No, it's just too big to bring them for a few moments. So it's just glad to start connecting with you, and we'll see how it works further on.
Thank you. Dino, Alexandra, I know you've had statements, Froda. Basically here the invitation is we've had a chance to meet each other. This is now another coming week before the next Wednesday for you to say, this is what I like, or this is not for me. I won't go to drop out. Obviously this is opt-in, opt-out kind of a forum. I certainly hope to see all of you again next week. I know I was quite ambitious in trying to share a bunch of stuff before this call. I don't anticipate that many of you have actually gotten around to even looking at it. But if you have materials that you want to share before next Wednesday, I invite you to do so. And if you have an opportunity to actually click on some of those links, that'd be great too, because then we can start the conversation either next Wednesday or even connect with me individually between now and then. Okay? Or anyone else. Shall we call it a good session of hopefully kicking off this potential exciting collaboration? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a kicking off. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's an embracing off or embracing in more than a kicking off. We're doing this together here. It's nice.
All right.
But martial artists, I think we can do the kicking off too. It's okay. Certainly.
Okay. We're breathing into it.
Breathing into it.
All right. Hey, I'm really excited to meet all of you. Okay. Look forward to chatting with you again next Wednesday and perhaps interacting between now and then. Okay. I'll post as soon as I can. Okay. Bye for now. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.